What's going on, folks? Ted from Nerd Immersion here, and let's continue on our TLDR stuff from the Unearthed Arcana Playtest 7. I keep calling it TLDR, but realistically, it's not. It's just a parsed down version. So this time, we're just going to be talking about the Barbarian, right? I did a very long live stream where I reviewed everything. We're going to just give you compartmentalized things for whether it's for filling out the survey later on, or just because you don't want to have to go look and you just want to hear my opinion on a specific thing. This is the Barbarian, so this will cover base Barbarian changes and also all of the subclass changes. Another thing to consider is we're really only looking at what changes happened from Unearthed Arcana playtest number 5. Playtest number 5 made the big changes to the Barbarian from the base 2014 version. This playtest 7 is sort of the update and improvement from that version. So we'll be commenting on what's changed from 5 to 7. Hope that all makes sense. Also, take an opportunity to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It's a simple click for all of you. It does a lot for me. And, honestly, it just makes me feel good. And if you like what I do here, that's a great way to help without having to do anything crazy or extra. Before we dive into it today, though, just real quick, wanted to talk about the sponsor for today's video. It's something, if you're a fan of Dungeons & Dragons or RPGs in general, you should definitely know about. And that is our good friend over at Chapeku Maps. We've talked about them in the past. I did a whole standalone video where I walked through a variety of the different options you have there with Patreon and things. But I just also wanted to draw a specific attention this time to their encounters section. It's a blog that basically teaches you how to run or gives you an ideas for different encounters. Now, again, how to run a fire elemental encounter, how to run a Galeb Dur, how to run a Kuatoa. These are standard things. But then they even have this new one right here, top 10 Chapeku maps to use in your Pirate Board campaign. So if you're looking to play something that's not even D&D related, but you want a map for a game of Pirate Board that you're running, they have an option for you here. So I'm hoping to do a lot more work with Chapeku maps in the future, just because they're phenomenal and they're some of the best map makers out there on the internet. So link in the description so you can go and check those out. Let's dive in to playtest number 7. So here we are with the Barbarian. Most of what we're going to do is probably going to just come from the design note, because it basically does give you all of the high-level stuff, and I'll color it with my opinion as we go through here, right? So they returned Danger Sense to level 2, and now it just works all the time, right? It used to be Danger Sense would be advantage on dexterity saving throws against things you could see. Now it just works, right? So if we read Danger Sense, it says you have advantage on dexterity saving throws, provided you don't have the incapacitated condition. So it works if you're blind or deafened. Reckless Attack now grants advantage to strength-based attack rolls until the start of your next turn, which is huge, because not only was the change made to strength-based attack rolls last time, allowing you to use this with thrown weapons, it also works until the start of your next turn, now allowing you to get it on opportunity attacks that may occur, which is pretty exciting. And I actually really like this. The design process behind this, Wizards of the Coast had said, was it kind of sucked in an opportunity attack scenario. You were getting all of the negatives of Reckless Attack because it's not your turn anymore. People still have advantage, but you don't have advantage on that attack, and you couldn't initiate it. So it lasts, basically you'll have more or less Reckless Attack even when it's not your turn, which is pretty exciting. Primal Knowledge was moved to level 3 from level 2. Again, this is to make it more in line with what we have in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. This is just giving you additional skills as a barbarian, which is a nice to have. Instinctive Pounce has been brought over from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. It was a pretty much a no-brainer, in my opinion, to do so. We'll talk about that when we get down a little bit further. They made a big change to Brutal Critical. Now, they made a huge change in Unearthed Arcana 5 to go from extra dice to a static number based on your Barbarian level. They've gone back the route of dice, but this time it's just extra D12s. It will still increase as you level up, and I like this. It kind of gives you almost the flavor of a Great Axe when doing extra critical damage, but without actually having to use one if you'd rather not. So you could be using a Great Sword dealing 2d6, and you'll just be tacking on extra d12s worth of damage, which is pretty nice to see. It's a decent power shift. And again, if you wanted to use a one-handed weapon or something that does a d8, or for whatever reason, or wield a shield as a barbarian, you could do so and still benefit from like a decent amount of extra damage from your critical, which I like. Relentless Rage was shifted back to 11th level, Persistent Rage returns to 15th level, and the Unconscious condition, not incapacitated, shuts off your rage. In addition, the feature incorporates the function of Rage Resurgence, which allows you to get a rage back on an initiative roll. We'll read those. Indomitable Might returns to 18. This is a bummer. I thought Indomitable Might was very good. I don't remember exactly where Indomitable Might was. It was at level 9 previously. That's a 9-level increase. I liked it because I feel like by the time you're level 18, Indomitable Might is almost useless. This is where if you make a strength check or strength saving throw and the total is less than your score, your strength score. So let's say by level 18 you have a 20 in your strength. If you rolled less than that, excuse me, you could just use 20. That is, again, somewhat useful, but by the time you're level 18, you have a lot of rages, you have a lot of means for advantage, so you're going to likely pass your strength score anyway, depending on what you're doing. I thought having Indomitable Might at level 9 was a nice feature because you actually might get use out of it, whereas you probably wouldn't at level 18. And then Primal Champion was returned to 20 as we saw that shift away from moving capstone abilities from like 20 to 19 or 18, and then adding in the bonus feat at level 20. But because the Primal Champion was now returned to 20, the bonus to Strength and Constitution has been increased back up to 4 from 2, which is nice. So, Rage remains the same as what we saw last time with its nice ability to be extended. Weapon Mastery is the same. I think it is, yeah, it's still 2 up to 4 weapon masteries. Nothing crazy there. We talked about the changes to Danger Sense and the adjustment, the extension kind of there of Reckless Attack. Again, here is Primal Knowledge now brought in at level 3. And they did still retain the option, which I like, which is while you rage, you can use your strength to be any one of the ability checks. I still love the fact that I can be so strong I'm good at perceiving things, but either way. We talked about Feral Instincts where it was, fast movement. Instinctive Pounce is now here, which is as part of the bonus action you use to take your rage, you can move up to half your movement speed. This is a really nice feature because Barbarian, you more than likely are going to be a close-up melee fighter. You don't have to be, but more than likely you would be. So you're going to be activating Rage when you get into combat anyway, allowing it to give you some movement, which also benefits from your fast movement ability at level 5, to then continue with your actual base move. Gives you a lot of battlefield maneuverability, and I really like that. Again, we talked about the adjustment to Brutal Critical. It is now an extra D12. It goes up to 2D12 at 13 and 3D12 at 17. Relentless Rage, again, remains pretty much the same here. If you succeed... Oh, here's the other thing. If you succeed, your hit points change to a number equal to twice your Barbarian level, as opposed to just coming back with 1, which is nice. And then again, the DC increases accordingly. We talked about Persistent Rage, but they added in this feature here. If you roll initiative and have no uses of Rage left, you get 1 back, which is nice because they did remove... Used to have unlimited Rages at high levels. Now it is 6, but again, at level 15, you'll now get 1 every time you enter combat, assuming you don't have 1, and then again, you still have your ability for your rage to just last the full 10 minutes without needing to be extended. Again, Indomitable Might is kind of a bummer to see it back at 18, but it's there, and then Primal Champion. All right. Path of the Berserker from Unearthed Arcana 5, not any big changes other than Intimidating Presence being shifted to a bonus action. This is something I was campaigning for, as were many of you. You want to be able to hit stuff, especially as a Berserker, so putting Intimidating Presence as a bonus action is a really nice change. As a bonus action, you can strike terror into the others with your Menacing Presence. When you do so, each creature of your choice within 30 feet or 60 feet if you're raging must make a wisdom saving throw, provided they aren't behind total cover. On a failure, they're frightened of you for 1 minute. They can repeat that save at the end of each of their turns. This is once per long rest, unless you expend a use of rage, which again, I also like the concept of using rages as a currency for you to increase or decrease the usages of things. Again, in the original iteration of Intimidating Presence and the one in Unearthed Arcana 5, I would probably not get a lot of use. It now being a bonus action that you can do on a turn after you've raged is a nice little nice to have, so I appreciate that. We now have Path of the Wild Heart. You might notice that the name has changed. It was once called Path of the Totem Warrior, which was what we had in the 2014 handbook, Player's Handbook. It has been adjusted to Path of the Wildheart, which also now mimics Baldur's Gate 3, and has had some changes made to them. Right? The Animal Speaker, which is formerly called Spirit Speaker, has its spellcasting ability specified. So it says right here that when you cast Beast Sense and speak with animals, you use Wisdom as your ability score, kind of just clarifying that. All right, they changed what was once called Totem Spirit is now called Rage of the Wild and has adjustments to all of the subsequent things. We'll talk about those. Aspect of the Wild, which is formerly called Aspect of the Beast, has revisions to them. They also changed the names of all what once were called totems, the animal options, because a lot of people thought if I took Bear at level 3, I had to take Bear at level 6, and then again at 14, and that's not the case. It was never the case. You could always mix and match, but people just kind of got locked in because they thought they had the same name, so they made an effort to change all of the names of all of the creatures you can pick so that there won't be any of that confusion. Nature Speaker has been changed from what was originally called Spirit Walker, and then again specified that it is Wisdom. And then again, Power of the Wilds also had adjustments. So let's take a look. Rage of the Wilds, the biggest one is probably the Bear Totem change. We all know that Bear Totem Barbarian or Bear Barbarian was one of the most popular because it gave you resistance to all damage types while raging except for psychic damage. Now, when you activate your rage, you choose 2 damage types other than force or psychic. Now, this does change every time you rage. You're not locked into a specific type, so you can adjust it to fit the scenario you find yourself in. And rage does still provide you that resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing every time. It also potentially gives you the benefit of being able to play a race, or again, in this instance, a species that has some sort of resistance, whereas playing a tiefling barbarian, if you are a tiefling bear barbarian before, it would be kind of a waste that your inborn tiefling ability gives you resistance to fire damage, because so would bear totem when you're raging. Now, there's actually kind of a benefit if you have an inborn standard ability from a species or a race, like say fire resistance from the tiefling, you could maybe choose, I don't know, poison and cold damage while raging. So you'd have that at that point resistance to poison, cold, fire, bludgeoning, piercing, slashing. Eagle has been adjusted here. When you activate your rage and as a bonus action while it's active, you can take both the disengage and the dash action. Previously, I believe it was just the dash action, and they also made it so that the turn that you choose to activate it, you can also utilize it with disengage and dash as options there. The only thing I can't tell from the way it's written is, do you get both the dash and disengage action at the same time? Or do you just get to choose one or the other? And then Wolf, while your rage is active, your allies have advantage on melee attack rolls against enemies of yours within 10 feet. It has been changed to 10 feet as opposed to, like, I think just adjacent or within 5 feet. We have Aspect of the Wilds. Again, we now have Elephant here, which is proficiency in athletics or insight, your choice. And if you already have proficiency in that skill, you get expertise in it. This is pretty great, especially if you want to be someone who's shoving or doing that kind of stuff, because you get athletics expertise here, which is nice. Owl gives you proficiency in investigation or perception, and then again, expertise in that if you already have it. This is really nice. It's giving the barbarian a lot of versatility. Again, you also do have the opportunity with, what was that ability called? I already forgot. Primal knowledge to acquire a lot of these to then make sure you have an opportunity to give yourself, already having proficiency so you can get expertise in it. And then Spider gives you proficiency in stealth or survival. And then again, the same concept. Nature Speaker, as we said, was just a change in the name to commune with nature as a ritual with wisdom. And then lastly, we have Power of the Wilds, which is again choosing 3 different animals, where you have Lion, which used to be called Bear. While your rage is active, any of your enemies within 5 feet of you have disadvantage on attack rolls against targets other than you. We have Falcon. While your rage is active, you have a fly speed equal to your speed, provided you aren't wearing any armor. This is a nice change because I think previously you could fly, but if you didn't stop flying at the end of your turn, you just fell. So now it's while you're raging, you have a fly speed. And you also have an increased movement speed from being a barbarian, so that's nice. And then we have Ram. While your rage is active, when you hit a larger, smaller creature with a melee attack, you can force them to make a strength saving throw or have the prone condition. I like that. Again, it makes more sense for a ram rather than a wolf. I know that I think of wolf trip attacks, but I like the changes to this overall. Bear Totem is obviously a pretty significant nerf, but I understand it. I do think overall it's a stronger subclass for it. Now, next up, we have Path of the World Tree. This is an entirely brand new subclass developed just for this Unearthed Arcana. I don't love this one at all, if I'm being honest with you. It doesn't really do it for me, but maybe it does for you. All right, level 3, Vitality of the Tree. When you activate your rage, you regain a number of hit points equal to your barbarian level. At the start of each of your turn while your rage is active, you can choose another creature within 10 feet of you to gain temporary hit points. To determine the number of temporary hit points, roll a number of d6 equal to your rage damage bonus and add them together. If any of these temporary hit points remain when your rage ends, they vanish. So again, this is starting off at 2d6, going possibly all the way up to 4d6. You're getting a little heal for yourself, very minimal, barbarian level. And then again, some temporary hit points to an ally within 10 feet. Nice, but again, nothing too crazy. Branches of the Tree at level 6. While your rage is active, whenever a creature you can see ends its turn within 20 feet of you, you can use your reaction to summon spectral branches of the world tree around it. They must make a strength saving throw or be teleported to an unoccupied space you can see within 5 feet of yourself or in the nearest unoccupied space you can see. The space the target teleports to must be on a surface or liquid that can support it, otherwise the target doesn't teleport. Now, it's nice because this is a constant use of your reaction, and because if they end their turn, and depending on where your turn is in the order, you can possibly teleport an enemy closer to you to make it easy for you to follow up with that attack. It also says whenever a creature. The only thing I wish it would say, it says in the 2024 Player's Handbook, will clarify that any creature can voluntarily fail any saving throw. I was actually just going to make that point and say they should include that here, because if you want to use this to try to pull an ally away from an enemy, you could do so. But now it's like it says right there, I'm probably going to make a separate, just short video saying, hey, did you realize that this is a thing? So you can now voluntarily choose to fail any saving throw of your choice. Again, a little battlefield maneuverability, but it's still not my favorite. 10, we get Battering Roots. While you wield any melee weapon, your reach with that weapon increases by 10 feet. And when you hit with it, you can activate the Push or Topple property if you're using another master property with that weapon. Now, that is a little bit interesting there. You are getting 10-foot reach. It increases by 10 feet, so if you are wielding a reach weapon already, you're now that much further out, which is interesting. And they're giving you Push or Topple automatically, regardless of what that weapon normally has. So in theory, if the weapon has a different mastery property, you now might have a weapon that has 3 properties, something that even the fighter wouldn't be able to do. And then at 14, Travel Along the Tree. As an action, you touch a huge or larger tree or teleportation circle to create a link through the world tree to a teleportation circle somewhere else in the world or any other plane of existence. When you do so, you can specify a target in general terms, such as the City of Brass on the elemental plane of fire. And you and up to 5 willing creatures within 30 feet of you appear at the teleportation circle closest to that destination. If a teleportation circle is too small to hold all the creatures transported, they appear in the unoccupied space closest to the circle. Once you use this feature, you can't use it until you finish a long rest. If you've run out of it, you can expend 5 uses of your rage to get this back. It is a mass teleport, which is nice, but this just feels a little too magic-y to me for the Barbarian. I don't know. It's got good stuff, but I feel like there are better options. I feel like Berserker and Wildheart are better. And then lastly, we have the Zealot Barbarian. Now this, again, did get some changes. Divine Fury now doesn't lock you into the damage type you get consistently. It allows you to pick whenever you deal damage, whether you want to deal necrotic or radiant damage. Warrior of the Gods now includes the ability to get extra HP when healed by a spell, which is a nice little feature, because potentially Warrior of the Gods might never become useful for you, so having the extra healing is nice. Zealous Presence allows you to use it multiple times between long rests by using your Rage, and Rage Beyond Death now turns you into a Warrior Spirit, which we'll talk about. All right, so Divine Fury. Once on each of your turns while your rage is active, the first creature you hit with a weapon or unarmed strike takes extra damage equal to 1d6 plus half your barbarian level rounded down. You choose necrotic or radiant. This is a little bit lessened, in my opinion, with the change to Berserker Barbarian, and now allowing you to deal extra damage. The caveat being Berserker Barbarian does require you to use Reckless Attack to get that extra damage, but it is d6 is equal to your rage damage, or your rage modifier, rage damage bonus rather. So you'll start off with 2d6 right out the gate, but it's to offset the fact that they don't have the third attack. I just feel like this could have gotten a little bit something, but I guess the damage choice is a little bit, kind of bump in power. Then again, we talked about Warrior of the Gods. When a spell or magic item restores any of your hit points, you can roll a d12 and regain additional hit points equal to the number rolled. You can use this benefit Constitution modifier times prolonged rest. Typically, Warrior of the Gods in the past was, in addition, if a spell such as Raise Dead has the sole effect of restoring you to life, the caster doesn't need material components to cast the spell on you. This is a nice feature because, resurrection spells can be very expensive. This eliminates that entirely, which is nice, but I like that they gave you something that, potentially, if you have a really well-designed party or, you're just careful tactically, you might never go unconscious to the point of death where someone would need to use a resurrection spell on you, or perhaps your world has permadeath rules so it doesn't ever come into play. So it's nice to add in this little extra feature to be useful more often, which is Constitution modifier times prolonged rest. You can just get an extra d12 when healing. Think about that with something like a base healing word. Healing word only healing you for a d4 plus spellcasting mod, now healing you for a d4 plus a d12 plus spellcasting mod could be pretty nice to get you more able, to handle things in a fight. Fanatical Focus hasn't really changed here at all, right? While your rage is active, you make a fail a saving throw, you can re-roll and use the new roll once per rage. That hasn't changed. Zealous Presence we talked about as a bonus action. Unleash a battle cry. Up to 10 other creatures of your choice within 60 feet of you gain advantage on attack rolls and saving throws until the start of your next turn. Once you use this, you can't use it until you finish a long rest. However, if you run out of this feature, you can expend a rage to activate it instead of rage. So again, using rage as a resource, I very much like this. You have an inborn ability. I think this is very cool. So I think that's well done. And lastly, Rage Beyond Death has some adjustments here, right? When your Relentless Rage successfully restores your hit points, so you go down to 0 and you use Relentless Rage to pop yourself back up, you can assume the form of a Spectral Warrior. While in this form, you gain the following benefits. You have a fly speed equal to your speed and can hover. You can move through creatures and objects as if they were difficult terrain, but you take a d10 force damage if you end inside a creature or object. When you're hit by an attack roll, you can use your reaction to turn that hit into a miss, which is pretty nice. And this form lasts for 1 minute or until you regain any hit points or drop to 0 hit points. Once you use this feature, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. I think that is a very strong ability, and in fact, I don't remember what Zealot Barbarians get at level 14, so we're actually going to go look that up right now, because that just seems like just a general overall improvement, and I like the theme of it. It very fits the Zealot. Previously, you had Rage Beyond Death. While you're raging, having 0 hit points doesn't knock you unconscious. You still have to make death saving throws and suffer the normal effects of taking damage while at 0 hit points. However, if you would die due to failing saving throws, you don't die until your rage ends, and you only die if you still have 0 hit points. Again, a lot of changes were made to this, right? Rage now lasts 10 minutes. You now have the adjustment to Relentless Rage, which heals you for hit points, which is also odd because you basically would have to be down and Relentless Rage not bringing you back up. Or, if you're playing a half-orc, Orcish Fury now coming into play, a lot of things have to happen for you to stay at 0 hit points as a barbarian. So this is nice, and it says when Relentless Rage restores your hit points, which again, if we recall the adjustments to Relentless Rage, are when you go to 0, and your rage is active, you don't die outright. You must make a DC 10 con save. You probably stand a pretty good chance to make that. If you succeed, your hit points instead change to a number equal to twice your barbarian level. Remember, we're talking about a level 14 character activating this, which means you're going to pop up with a DC 10 Constitution saving throw to 28 hit points. And yeah, unfortunately, it wouldn't trigger your Warrior of the Gods feature, but you'd be back up with 28 hit points, my mistake. And And then you'd also have the fly speed equal to your speed, and can hover, move through creatures and objects as if they're difficult terrain, and then possibly turn any hits against you at least once a turn with your reaction into a miss. And then it says again, lasts for a minute or until you regain any hit points, somebody heals you further, or you drop to 0 hit points again. I think that that's a very cool improvement. It definitely feels like Zealotous, right? This kind of turning into a warrior spirit. I very much like the changes to Barbarian overall. It's hard for me in some instances because I see some stuff's been changed. Like for the Paladin, I see some stuff changed for the Barbarian that were basically go-to options. Like the Bear Totem Barbarian, for example, was the go-to option if you were playing, say, Totem Warrior. And even in some instances, that was people's go-to option just because of the survivability that it provided. Now it feels like you actually have an opportunity and potentially a reason to want to choose a different subclass or different choices within the subclass. And that's kind of a general thing we've seen across all of the adjustments that are coming for 2024, is trying to bring things more in band with other things, whether it's pretty weak and useless to try to bring it up and have its power level higher. If it's like the one sole choice, what everybody wants is super powerful, they're trying to bring it down. And I think the adjustment to making Bear Totem be two weapon or two elemental damage types, I think is definitely a good way to do it. Like I said, there are ways to get a lot of ways to get resistance. If you're a tiefling and you have Infernal Constitution, right there, that tiefling inborn has resistance to fire, ice, and poison damage. Then with Rage, you'd have on top of that Bludgeoning, Piercing, Slashing, and two other ones. So Tiefling, Infernal Constitution, Feat, Barbarian with the Bear Totem could possibly have a ton of resistances. You'd almost be at where you were at with the Bear Totem. So I like it. I also, again, I love to see the fact that they're doing things like using Rage as a currency resource for barbarians to expend uses of their rage to get back powerful features. We've seen this start to happen more and more often. Expend a use of Bardic Inspiration to do something unique. Expend sneak attack damage dice now for the rogue to do something else, right? That's a new thing. Expend a usage of your wild shape. I'd love to see paladins have an ability to spend points of their lay on hands pool to do something cool. That would be pretty neat to see. But anyway, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. I'll see you all next time.